eating well with fatigue and on a budget. I think this is something incredibly important to cover because, as we've discussed earlier, making changes to your diet can be incredibly difficult, and it can be even more difficult when you're living with a disease like lupus that impact your energy levels, and also you may be more likely to be on a restricted income if you've had to reduce your working hours in order to help manage your disease effectively. So we'll crack on with the first question. So sometimes fatigue means that someone can be too exhausted to cook or sometimes even to chew food. So what would you recommend someone does on days like this when they're really struggling with fatigue? Because it may not always be easy to have food cooked ready or frozen and prepared in advance.
Definitely. So I would recommend, I mean, there are one of two things to kind of have around, or let's say three. The first one is, okay, and I realize not ideal, but there is, you know, with the food delivery service and so on, I know we're told it's always better to kind of eat at home and cook from home, but sometimes that's just not feasible, as we talked about, right? Like we don't have time, we don't have the resources. So in terms of food delivery, can you choose or can you identify a food delivery service, so a restaurant or something like that, or a type of cuisine? So the ones that I usually will kind of put out there for people will be, oh, you know, Indian cuisine, for example, has a lot of vegetable-based curries, right? And so if that's something that maybe you would want to consider, that you can have your go-to relatively healthy takeaway food service that can really help you in a time like this, and that you can still be getting plenty of vegetables, plenty of anti-inflammatory benefits. Other foods around this, you know, Korean food, Vietnamese food, even some forms of Japanese food as well. These you can find also. Another one that I recommend is Greek food, Lebanese food, because these have, once again, a lot of vegetable-based dishes that can be a really nice go-to. The other thing about it is, I understand, obviously, this is not always feasible, but on some days, on the days where you do have energy, can you make sure that you allocate a little bit of time on those days to bulk prep? Right? So on the days you do have energy, you know, rather than cooking one portion, cook 6 portions and just stick them in a Tupperware in the fridge, right? Or, you know, do a big half day once a week where you kind of put all of your vegetables in the oven and cook a big pan of lentils or of brown rice and then kind of stick it in the fridge. And then when you're having one of these fatigue days, then you kind of mix and match, right? You put all the different vegetables together, you throw in some lentils, and there you go. That's a quick meal. And then the final thing, which is what Eleni, I thought, you know, very brilliantly recommended, is about swapping and just about making kind of better swaps and better choices. So, you know, if usually you know that when you're really tired at 4 p.m., you're really, really going to crave something sweet, and that's usually when you go for that cookie, can you make sure that that cookie is actually harder to reach or maybe not around, and instead have something really easy to reach on the counter? So something like, let's say, a banana and some peanut butter, right? Some sugar-free, you know, oil-free peanut butter, right? Not the sugary kind. And just have that around. It just makes our lives easier. It's just about making these simple, small changes to just make our environment make it easier to eat healthier.
Brilliant. Some really good tips there. So this next question was someone saying that they find it really difficult to sort of cook full meals and make changes to their diet. And they were wondering about what kind of support there might be for them. Is this something that can be part of their multidisciplinary team through their hospital? Or are there sort of services available through sort of nutritionists or other types of support there?
So there are sources of support. There are health coaches out there. And so this is probably the people who will kind of take you step by step through changing not only just your food is a big part of this, but also little changes in your habits, right? Like, what does your morning routine look like? How much are you getting outside per day? Are you getting any nature? Are you having any mindfulness practices? And they also look at the food. So health coaches, nutritionists, your doctor, if your doctor has some kind of training in nutrition, your GP can also be a really good source of support. There are support groups. My support group in particular, so I actually run exactly this. My support group, we kind of work with doctors, and we take, patients from the GP practice, and they kind of come and we form right now we're on Zoom, but we form a Zoom group of, let's say, 6 people, and we go through a nutrition education and support program. And that is all oriented around, increasing your knowledge of nutrition, of course, but mostly around little tips of what you can do in order to make this more feasible, while kind of listening to other people's stories, meeting other people who are on the same journey as you are. So I don't know too many other groups that are out there that are doing this right now. I'm hoping that this is going to become kind of the baseline in the future. But this is definitely something you can look up, is healthy support groups, even a running group, a walking group. These are all going to be very helpful to you in the long run.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. So the next question, I think we've sort of covered it a bit already, but someone's asking, how can they tackle their sugar cravings when they're experiencing fatigue, and especially as a woman during certain times of their menstrual cycle? So I think swapping for alternatives was something that Eleni sort of mentioned earlier, but do you have any tips sort of specifically about these cravings?
Yes, definitely. So it turns out that at, these certain times in your cycle, which usually tends to be, let's say, in the 7 to 10 days leading up to your period, and then while you are menstruating, our metabolism actually ramps up. And we tend to have a drop in our hormones, in one hormone in particular, which is progesterone. And the drop in that hormone causes cravings. So you're not crazy. It's actually completely physiological that you start feeling cravings at this point in your cycle, right? Because you're having this hormonal drop. And of course, when we're having those cravings, we do tend to go for like that sugary food and everything. But that sugary food is actually going to drop your hormone levels even more. So it has a cyclical effect. What we're looking to kind of get into your diet is foods that are going to balance your blood sugar to mitigate those cravings. And so if you can incorporate more things like brown rice, like grains, once again, why? Because these are complex carbohydrates and they will take quite a long time in order to be digested. So they will keep your blood sugar relatively stable. The fiber in them will also keep you full and will prevent you from craving, again, these kind of sugary foods. So once again, like a big bowl of brown rice, chickpeas are wonderful during this period of time. Apples have a lot of fiber and they're a bit sweet, so they can really get your sweet craving. And also incorporating the healthy fats as well to once again keep you full, keep you satiated. Things like avocados are also really wonderful here. And when you're menstruating, trying to replace the iron from the blood loss. So this would, this is my recommendation. So I'm not promoting veganism. This is a really nice time to have a piece of steak. Or if you are, a vegetarian or a vegan, red kidney beans have a lot of iron as well.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. So the last question that we have on this topic, someone has said that with lupus, it can be very hard to find healthier foods that are both affordable and also require minimal preparation. So we know that sometimes getting things like chopped vegetables, frozen, may help cut some of that preparation time and effort, but will be more expensive. So they've asked, are there any particular resources that can help people find affordable and healthy foods that are sort of easier to prepare?
Right. So in terms of the finding affordable foods, I encourage everybody who is kind of listening here, if you haven't already, to check for your local farmers market. Because the farmers market actually provides fresh fruits and vegetables, usually organic, right? Straight out of the earth, the most vitamins and minerals that you can find for a very affordable price. It's also at the farmers market that you can find, you know, antibiotic-free, pastured dairy and meat products. You can also find free-range chicken. So this, I believe that if it is feasible for you to kind of incorporate that into your routine, trying to go to the farmers market, shopping in the produce aisle in the supermarket. So going again more for those fresh products. Also kind of buying in bulk. So if you buy in bulk things like brown rice or chickpeas or lentils, these actually tend to be quite cheap, and you can find that at any kind of corner store. You don't even have to go into the supermarket. And then when it comes to prepping, this is a tough one, right? Because we do want to get those fresh fruits and vegetables. So I would recommend actually, again, this kind of, can you take 2 to 3 hours in your week, not in your day, to just do a big bulk prep. A big bulk prep, do that big, you know, jar of chickpeas, kind of, if you want to do a sauce, this is the time to do a sauce, chop the vegetables all at that point, and then spend the rest of the week kind of picking and choosing and putting things together. And then probably identifying just 2 or 3 recipes, maybe just 2, that are full of vegetables that works for you and that you can just always have lying around there in your fridge. And then the last option here, can you find kind of an affordable takeaway service, if none of this is feasible, that has these healthy options available? Or if you want to just from the takeaway order a big thing of hummus and then use the vegetables that you have in the fridge and kind of mix it up that way.
Great, thank you. I think for people who experience difficulty with preparing some foods, because maybe of joint pain or issues like that, it's worth having a look online if you've got internet access, or if not, contact us, because there might be sort of ergonomic equipment that can help you with the preparation of some foods. So if you suffer from wrist pain or finger joint pain from chopping vegetables, you can sometimes get equipment that can help make that easier. I know that Versus Arthritis has some information about this, so it's worth having a look online to see what equipment may be able to help you as well.